So this is reading from the Chaitanya Siksamrta by Bhaktivinode Thakur, and praying to Srila Prabhupada that we can hear nicely from the Acharyas. This is part 1, chapter 1, part 1, and we're partway through it. Read a little bit more tonight. Okay. Bhaktivinode Thakur is setting the stage for presenting Krishna Bhakti. He's been discussing the inadequacies of many other philosophies that are prevalent. And he continues here. He says, though men in various countries, on various continents, have a wide variety of natures, the principal nature is only one. Only the secondary characteristics are many. But though the principal nature is one, there will not be found any two people in the world who have identical secondary qualities. As even twins born of the same womb have some differences in form and quality, one cannot expect that people born in different countries can ever have exactly the same qualities. Different countries have different water, air, mountains, forests, eatables, clothing. Because of this, the people of these places have naturally developed different physiques, complexions, customs, clothing, and food. Similarly, the people's mentality will differ, and thus various people's ideas of God, though being basically similar, will differ in details. When men in various countries surpass the uncivilized stage and progress to the civilized stage, the scientific stage, the moral stage, devotional stage, they will develop differences in language, dress, food, and mentality. This gives rise to difference in the mode of worship of God. Considering the matter objectively, there's no harm in secondary differences. If there is agreement concerning the essential nature of God and His worship, there should be no obstacle in obtaining the same result. Thus, Mahaprabhu has instructed that we should instruct everyone to worship the pure form of the Lord, but at the same time we should not criticize others' modes of worship. Because of the above reasons, we see the following differences amongst the religions of different countries. 1. Difference of teachers or prophets. 2. Difference in worshippers' mentality and consequent expressions of reverence. 3. Difference in procedures of worship. 4. Differences in conceptions of God. 5. Differences in God's name and statements due to difference in language. Thus, people in India give respect to the rishis. In other countries, they respect prophets like Muhammad. In other countries, they respect Christ. And in other places, the inhabitants give respect to various native sages. It is imperative that the people of the country give proper respect to the native saints, but no one, though he may hold his particular belief to benefit his own progress, should go to other places and preach that what his teachers have taught is superior to other teachings. This gives no benefit at all to the world. Concerning different expressions of reverence, in India the worshipper sits on an asana, and after performing niyas and pranayam, he begins his worship. The Muslim faces towards Mecca and worships 5 times a day by bowing down. The Christian kneels with folded hands and with humility prays the Lord in either church or house. Each country has its own particular rules concerning proper dress, food, purity, and impurity. If one examines the different religions, one will see different rituals. One will also see different conceptions concerning the object of worship. Some people, overcome with devotion in their hearts, establish the form of the Lord in their soul, in their mind, and finally in the external world. Understanding that the form is non-different from the Lord within, they worship that form. In some religions, because the greater emphasis is on logic, the worshipper simply forms a conception of God in the mind and worships it. They do not accept an external form of God. In reality, however, all these conceptions are forms of the Lord. According to language differences, different religions call God by different names. The religions have different names, and the languages used during worship are also different. Because of these 5 differences, it is only natural that various religions will appear quite different. However, it is improper and detrimental to argue over these differences. If one goes to someone else's place of worship, one should think, the people are worshiping my Lord, but in a different way. Because of my different training, I cannot quite comprehend this system of worship. However, through this experience, I can deepen my appreciation for my own system of worship. The Lord is only one, not two. I offer respect to the form I see here, and pray to the Lord in this new form that He increase my love for the Lord in His accustomed form. Those who do not follow this procedure, but instead criticize other systems of worship and show hatred, violence, and envy, are worthless and foolish. The more they indulge in useless quarreling, the more they betray the very goal of their religion. However, one should consider the following point. Though it is worthless to criticize a difference in religious system, if one sees a fault, one should not tolerate it. It is beneficial for living entities if one attempts to correct the fault in the proper way. Thus, Mahaprabhu, in discussing with Buddhists, Jains, and impersonalists, led them to the proper path. The devotees of Lord Chaitanya should always take the Lord's behavior as the proper example to follow. The devotee does not accept those religions which are filled with atheism, skepticism, materialism, pantheism, and impersonalism as real religions. He knows them to be false religions, anti-religious movements, perverted religions, and he understands that their followers are unfortunate. Devotees must try to protect the living entities from these false religions. Pure love is the eternal function of the soul. Though the above-mentioned 5 differences may exist in a religion, the real religion is pure love. This is the final goal of religion. We should not quarrel over external differences. If the goal of a religion is pure love, then all else is adjusted. Atheism, skepticism, polytheism, materialism will be shown later on. Let me try that again. Atheism, skepticism, polytheism, materialism, pantheism, and impersonalism are by their very nature contrary to love. This will be shown later on. Love of Krishna, Krishna Prema, is that pure love. The quality of love that it takes shelter of one entity, the quality of love is that it takes shelter of one entity and takes another as its object. Prema cannot exist without the shelter or the subject, ashraya, and vishaya, the object. The shelter of prema is the heart of the soul. The object of prema is Krishna alone. When perfect, pure prema arises. The aspects of the Lord as Brahman, the controller, and Narayan ripen into the form of Krishna. On reading this book and understanding the concept of prema, this will be understood. A person who argues just on hearing the name of Krishna is cheated of the truth. Quarreling about names is of no value. The living entity should search out the object indicated by the name. The sweet qualities of Krishna, as described in the crown jewel of scripture Srimad Bhagavatam, were the personal realization of Vyasadeva through his spiritual vision. Through the instructions of Narada, Vyasadeva attained devotional trance and saw the form of Krishna. Vyasadeva described the sweet qualities of Krishna, for he realized that by developing devotion to that form of Krishna, jivas could drive away all forms of lamentation, illusion, and fear. On hearing or reading about Krishna and his sweet qualities, the living entities, according to their nature, understand him in two different ways. Understanding through true knowledge and understanding without knowledge. Even when Krishna is personally present and can be seen with mortal eyes, the two types of people will see in these two different ways. If a person desires to learn more about these two types of perception, he may study the Satsandarbhas, Bhagavatamrita, and Shri Krishna Sanhita under a competent authority. It is impossible to elaborate on the subject here. Briefly, realization through true knowledge, vidvapartit, may be described as realization under Vidya Shakti, or the knowledge potency of the Lord. And understanding without knowledge, avidvatpratiti, may be described as an understanding of the Lord under ignorance. If Krishna is understood through avidvatpratiti, many controversies arise. If he is understood through vidvatpratiti, there's no place for disagreements. Those interested in spiritual development should immediately obtain vidvatpratiti. What is the point in understanding through avidvatpratiti, falling into argument and confusion, and losing the goal of life? Some idea about vidvatpratiti had been given. Vidvatpratiti is possible for those persons who give up material conceptions and can conceive of spirit. They can then perceive Krishna with their spiritual eyes, hear his pastimes with their spiritual ear, and relish Krishna completely with their spiritual taste buds. Krishna's pastimes are completely non-material. Though Krishna can, by his inconceivable potency, become the object for the material eye, by nature he is not perceivable by material senses. When Krishna descends and reveals his pastimes to the material senses, only the person with vidvatpratiti attains real contact with the Lord. Normally, avidvatpratiti operates. Thus, most people understand Krishna as temporary being, with birth, growth, and decay. By avidvatpratiti, a person thinks that the impersonal state, devoid of qualities, is truth, and the personal state of God with qualities is material. They conclude Krishna is material since he has qualities. Understanding the supreme truth is not a matter of mundane logic. How can the limited intellect of man operate in relation to the unlimited Lord? The supreme truth can only be understood and relished by the devotional element which is present in the soul. This devotion, or bhakti, is the preliminary stage of pure love, prem. Vidvatpratiti arises only by Krishna's mercy, for only by Krishna's mercy does the Vidvat Shakti help the jivas. Of all the conceptions of God existing in the world, the form of Krishna is the most suitable for developing pure love. The conception of Allah in the Quran is not suitable for developing pure love. Even the Lord's dear prophet cannot see Allah's form, for though the Lord is friendly, he remains at a distance from the worshipper due to the conception of God as master. The God in the Christian faith is also some distant entity, What to speak of the impersonal Brahman? Even Narayan is not the form by which the soul can easily obtain pure love. Krishna alone, who resides in the spiritual abode of Raj, is the object of pure love. The abode of Krishna is full of bliss. Though majesty also resides there in fullness, it does not predominate. Rather, sweetness and eternal bliss predominate. His wealth is its fruit, flowers, and twigs. His citizens are the cows. His friends are the cowherd boys, and his associates are the gopis. His food is butter, yogurt, and milk. All the groves and forests are filled with love of Krishna. The Yamuna River is engaged in Krishna's service. Everything in nature serves him. Though elsewhere he is worshipped and revered by all as the Supreme Lord, here, as the life of all the inhabitants, he sometimes descends to the worshipper's level and sometimes becomes his subordinate. If it were not like this, could the lowly living entity have a relation of love with God? Can the Lord, who is filled with highest sport, endowed with free will, and eager for the love of the soul, hanker for man's offerings of worship or feel genuinely satisfied with it? Krishna, the reservoir of sweet pastimes, thus covers his majestic aspect with sweetness, accepts equality with or subordination to qualified souls in transcendental Vrindavan, and feels bliss. Can anyone who accepts pure love or prema as the highest goal accept anyone other than Krishna as the object of love? Though different languages may not use the same words to describe Krishna, Vrindavan, the gopas, gopis, and cows, Yamuna, the Kadamba trees, those persons interested in pure love must accept the name, place, form, and pastimes in some form, using some words. Thus Krishna alone is the object of pure love. Until pure attraction arises in the heart of the living entity, the devotee with a sense of duty must carefully cultivate Krishna consciousness by practicing the primary and secondary rules of bhakti. One will see that there are two ways of cultivating Krishna consciousness: through rules, vidhi, and through attraction, raga. Attraction, raga, is rare. When raga develops, the path of vidhi loses its effectiveness. But as long as raga does not develop, one must take shelter of vidhi. This is imperative for man. Therefore, scriptures outline these two paths. The path of raga is extremely independent, or individualistic. There are no set rules. Only those who are most advanced and fortunate can practice raga. Therefore, only the rules for the path of vidhi have been systematically presented in the scriptures. Those who unfortunately do not believe in God also formulate rules for maintaining their life. These rules are called morality. Those moral codes which do not include thought of God cannot accomplish any good for mankind, even though presented skillfully. Such morality is materialistic. Moral codes which express belief in God and oblige service to Him are fit for mankind. Rules are of two types, primary and secondary. Those rules which directly lead us to serving and satisfying the Lord are called primary rules. Those rules of life which indirectly support that goal are called secondary. This will be clear by giving an example. Taking an early morning bath is a rule. By doing this, the body becomes fresh and disease-free, and the mind as well becomes steady. If the mind is steady, one can worship the Lord properly. Here, the goal, worship of the Lord, is not the immediate intention of the bath. The bath's direct result is bodily comfort. If bodily comfort is accepted as the final goal of the bath, then the worship of the Lord is not achieved at all. There are many possible intervening results between bathing and worshiping God. With such intervening agents, there is possibility of obstruction. The direct result of the primary rules is worship of the Lord. There's no intervening results between the rule and the worship of the Lord. Chanting the holy name, hearing about him are two primary rules, because their direct result is worship of the Lord. Though we must always observe primary rules, if we do not observe the secondary rules, we cannot maintain the body properly, nor our life. If we cannot maintain our life, how can we follow the primary rules of devotional service? The secondary rules are the ornament of man's life: material education, technology, industry, civilization, order, perseverance. Bodily, mental, and social rules are accepted. In that way, they may be used to bring mankind to serve the feet of the Lord sincerely. Being servants of the primary rules, by the Lord's grace, they make the life of mankind blissful, both during practice and perfection. Though there are many types of primitive life, civilized life, life equipped with material sciences, atheistic moral life, theistic moral life, life endowed with Vaidhi Bhakti, and life endowed with Prema Bhakti, real life of man begins with theistic moral life. Without belief in God, human life is no better than that of an animal, no matter how much civilized or advanced in scientific knowledge or moral principles it may be. Real human life operates when a person accepts the rules and prohibitions of theistic moral life. Thus, in this book, the discussion begins from this stage of life. Civility, morality, and material science are considered as ornaments to this life. How the theistic moral life culminates in devotional life will be discussed in this book. The real life of the living entity is called Jiva Dharma, the soul's inherent nature. For the human being, Jiva Dharma is called Manava Dharma. Man's dharma is of two types: secondary and primary, or incidental and inherent. Secondary or incidental dharma takes shelter of matter, material qualities, material relations. The primary dharma takes shelter of the pure soul. The primary dharma is the real dharma of the soul. The secondary dharma is of no value, being the transformation of the primary dharma under the influence of material qualities. When material qualities are removed, the dharma of the soul exists purely as the primary dharma. Secondary dharma is also called conditioned dharma. When the material conditions are removed, primary dharma remains. Secondary rules and prohibitions, piety and avoidance of sins are included in the secondary dharma. Secondary dharma does not leave the soul, but matures into the primary dharma when the jiva is freed from the material modes. The secondary dharma appears in the conditioned state by an unnatural transformation of the primary dharma. By a positive transformation of the secondary dharma, the primary dharma appears again. After examining the secondary rules and prohibitions, the primary rules and prohibitions, and finally the perfected stage of the jiva, Prema Bhakti, will be discussed. Well, I could keep going. This is so nice. Bhaktivinode Thakur, he writes so clearly. But it's late, so we'll stop here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.